for episode 66 of State of Scrims. My room is somewhat put together. There's going to be more stuff on the wall in the next couple weeks or so, something to look forward to. But I am joined by Gruer once again. Very exciting so far this season. Lots of Gruer. I'm loving it. How are you today?
Happy to be here. Doing great.
Yeah, so this week's been nuts. So the first week we were a little upset at the lack of series that went to 3 games, but this time around, I believe every series went to 3 games. Potentially
I think so.
wrong on that, but
Oh
yeah,
no, close
yes, I
though.
think no, I think all three did.
Yeah, both
Or
on Sunday did, and the one yesterday did.
yeah, and then ours did also.
Okay, then they all did.
I thought so, unless I'm like misremembering. I'm pretty sure Metabusters took a game off us.
Yeah, I think so. It's BM if you're wrong, but yeah, they did. They did. They
Yeah,
did
they did. I
with
was like,
the
when you said it was
yes,
like
yes, they
close
did.
to being true, I was like, I'm pretty sure. Like, but anyway, I think we could just walk through it. Rift Sharks versus Metabusters was an absolute balls to the wall banger. I love that series, and I do feel like it only
Yes.
got better from there, which is like absolutely absurd to even think about. But oh, I meant to do some research on a stat for later on, but I'll have to fact check after the video. But Rift Sharks versus Metabusters was an absolute banger. We got to see a really solid lineup for Metabusters. I think this is the one that they're going to try to go for a lot this season. We got to see Corn, Snow,
Hmm.
Tusini, Stav, and Jacob. Very powerful. Tusini's had just an insane series. Unfortunately, the Kale I think didn't really get too much of a chance to shine, but he looked absolutely fantastic all game, like all series. I think he was the highlight of the entire series for me, just because of how well he was playing. I think that Ace game was almost entirely on his back. I don't know if he got the MVP or not, but that was super hard for them to play into. The Zoe was absolutely absurd, and yeah, I mean, Kale was what it was. That game was pretty tough. I think Snow had a really good run on the Ezreal jungle, but it just hit a point where Kog'Maw was just wiping people off the map instantly. Uh, Game two, I think, was kind of the notable one. Metabusters was able to outscale and end up winning that one. I feel like the
Hmm.
Nocturne Oriana had a lot of success early, and we just kind of fell off and made some bad engages and ended up losing it. But I believe you got to cast this one, or were you
I
unable
yeah.
to? Okay, so
This
I want to
one
hear
was
your thoughts.
a yeah, this one was a very good series. I also was pretty impressed by it. I thought the form Tusini showed coming back. I mean, in the second game they actually ended up winning. I mean, he scaled really hard on the Asol, but if I recall correctly, I think the MVP that game it was given to Snow because to me I thought Snow pulling out the Yone jungle was hitting some just crazy ultimates and setting up for the team and really allowed their team to scale. I thought Rift Sharks had that one. I know you guys probably feel like you kind of threw it a little bit. You definitely did. But like really what happened to me, I think, overplayed it a little bit, got punished. You had like 3 inhibitors down at that point, which yeah, normally that'd be great, but you weren't really ever able to find the game winning punish anymore. And so it was just like 3 super waves feeding a Caitlyn and an Asol, and they just kind of scaled. But overall, I thought both teams played pretty good in the series, had like really good moments. Really impressed with Rift Shark's bottom lane. I continue to be. Evan, obviously a pretty known quantity, played with him for a long time, so I know he's great. Frentic being a new player has really impressed me. And then you continued to get great performances kind of out of everyone else. I think in that game one, uh, if I'm remembering correctly, I think Chow may have even gotten the MVP that game for the Kennen, and
Oh my god, that's
he hit some
disgusting.
crazy Kennen ults. I thought he was really impressive.
Yeah, that
And
game
then
was looking
Giraffe in the
like
last game
Metabusters
too.
might pull away with it, but Chow hit some like absolute fatty ultimates and just secured it
Yeah,
for us.
yeah, I feel like I remember being so impressed by his ultimates, not just like the easy ones, but he was finding some crazy hard ones too. Because to me, it's like when you're on a character like Kennen or maybe like something like Annie's kind of the same way. When you have your flash and you have your ultimate up, you should be able to find the big play. He was finding good ults every single time, flash up or not, and was just really preventing the back line of Metabusters from being able to actually close that game out. I just thought it was really good. And then the third game, yeah, I was hyped to see the Tusini Kale because he's played that a lot in the past, including like in the finals and done really well with it. But the Cogma mid kind of just came online and they had no answer for that in their team comp.
Yeah, I that was absurd. I like was watching that. I honestly thought the game was sunk. at like 17 minutes or so. I think the other team had like a 3k gold lead. It was like really hard for us to touch Kale. Just at a certain point, Giraffe literally took Jacob off the map with 2 abilities, and Stav got deleted in like 0.3 seconds or something absurd. And I was like, oh, well, that's it. I do really want to shout out Chow. I think he had a bit of a rough game too, but just coming back around and like absolutely dumpstering Corn in game 3 was super solid, especially into I feel like Orn's one of Corn's more consistent champions. I mean, Renekton's very solid as well. Obviously, he performed on it, but I think Set is like a less impressive win into Corn just in the laning phase because he doesn't play it as much. And getting to see Fishy
Yeah.
off one of those core 3 champions that we expect him to play a lot, I think he performed really well in the Kane. So I think that was really impressive for my team there. But I
Yeah,
mean,
I
Stott
really
and Jacob
liked
Botling
the
being back
Kane.
is awesome, but I think Evan and Frentic did a really good job handling them. Jacob had a really good first game in the series as well. I think his Sona was a huge pain point for our team.
Hmm.
But I think we can move on to New York Nutbusters versus Project Tuesdays, which was it delivered. It delivered for sure.
The
Blind
one you
Spiral going
casted, yeah.
deathless in the first game was nuts. I was like,
Yeah, he got
was
low a few times, but they
floored.
just could not kill him.
Yeah, and I think it was just tough because their damage carries didn't quite get online. Psycho Carrot was really active around the map, and I think Blake had a really strong start to the game. He put Dave so far behind. I mean, this whole series, I feel like Blake just was sending the message of Dave, just go back to another lane. Like, you're not here. And I feel like the rest of Project Tuesday stepped up super hard, and they were able to get a lot done. And I mean, I feel like all anyone's ever going to remember from that series is LSD Dreams like absolutely carrying the shit out of the last game on Ari. He dropped 18 kills, 6 deaths. It was ridiculous. I
Hmm.
mean, second game was really good. Blake's Irelia popped the fuck off, and I feel like the rest of the map just played super solidly as well. Carrot was finding really good engages on the Vi. Daniel had a couple super close zero ultimates that almost were freaking amazing, but he had a lot of really consistent ones as well. And Archived really stepped it up on the Jinx. That was super impressive. But I mean, Project Tuesdays just had a hell of a series. The first
Yeah, they
game
did.
was
I
super
mean,
clean.
were you surprised that the Anivia got to come through in that first game?
I was, but I think it makes sense given that I feel like Syndra is a decent counter into it, and I think they played the lane really well. And not having to deal with it for the rest of the series opened up their bans a little bit, just allowing them to kind of triple ban ADCs the entire time. Although we did
Hmm.
see Milio come out as the third ban in the second game, and then Victor in the third one. The Victor ban, I was honestly more surprised about. I wasn't sure if that was super high up on LSD Dreams' list. I was aware of the Ari, so the fact that he was able to get that instead of the Victor was a little bit questionable to me because I think it's a more proactive
Hmm.
champion. But I mean, I think they played well enough into the Anivia. I think their problems were elsewhere on the map, though. The Morgana pick basically didn't even get to do anything that game, past early game.
Yeah, I watched that series back the other day, and I was also surprised by the Victor ban in game 3, but kind of different people stood out to me in each game. Like you said, I thought Blind Spiral had a really great performance in game 1. You shouted out a lot of the players in game 2 already, but I thought PB's Galio support was really good. 1, 2, and 18 is a pretty crazy score line, and I think he was actually kind of able to shut down LSD Dreams in that game. Kind of had the counter pick onto Akali, even though it wasn't obviously a lane counter pick. He was playing support, but I thought he did a nice job because LSD Dreams kind of got off to a good start in that game too, and was kind of found a really nice kill onto Carrot early in the jungle. Was getting very strong. I mean, Spiral had a really nice Baron steal in game 2 as well to kind of extend the game, but overall, NYMB closed it out pretty well. And then game 3, yeah, that one was the game 3 was awesome though because I mean, frankly, New York Nutbusters, in my opinion, that was their game to lose, and they did. I mean,
Yeah.
I might be misremembering the score line, but I'm pretty sure at one point, I mean, Blake was super fed. I think Daniel was like 6-1 or 5-1, and ends the game like six,
Yeah.
6-7. Unfortunately, they just and they had that one, but yeah, as you said, LSD Dreams just kind of started really going crazy. I thought, I mean, you have Spiral on Amumu, which is one of his most comfortable champions. That was drawing bans last season a ton because he's so good at it, and he had a really nice game. Dave played well outside of the lane phase. Yug and Fatel, but to me, when I was watching it, as good as LSD Dreams was, I think Fatel is like sleeper MVP in that game. Just watching that back, the amount of healing the Nami was putting out that was allowing the Ari and the other carries to like play through those fights was hitting insane ultimates. There was one fight where Fattel completed the McHale's pretty early in the game, and I mean like instant McHale's Ari the moment she gets Lissandra ulted in a fight. And so I thought Nami was huge in that game as well. But yeah, Project Tuesday is just looking like a great team here 2 weeks in.
Yeah, I guess that's a really good call out. That's something I missed on the initial cast. So thanks for shouting out Fatal there. And yeah, I mean, I feel like New York Nutbusters had a really solid game, and then they hit a point where kind of Blake was the only one able to really deal damage in the AD sense, and then it's super easy to just itemize MR into Lissandra and
Yeah.
Hwei. And neither of them do like a ton of DPS. Hwei's a little better than Lissandra, but Lissandra and Fury are so bursty. If you're not able to kill the Amumu and Ornn fast enough, it's just kind of cooked. And they hit a point where they weren't even able to kill the Ahri and the Caitlyn fast enough, partially due to the
Yeah.
Nami, partially just due to the fact that Ahri can build tanky items and be fine. So yeah, it was just tough. I feel like the lead on Fury just didn't convert. I was really surprised to see New York Nutbusters not contest the Amumu at all, because it is a really good champion for Psycho Carrot, and
Yep.
allowing Blind Spiral to get that when I think it is probably his best champion. I mean, Mundo now competing for that because holy Christ, but
Yeah.
the Amumu just going over to him without like a super good counter into it. I mean, I see the angle for the Poppy, but it just didn't really pan out the way it needed to.
Yeah, so one thing that I thought, well, so even in the loss, the Neferi top lane looked super scary. So I'm excited to see more of that from Blake. It just seems like if you're playing against a melee champion, it's just so hard. I mean, the initial kill he found onto Dave, where he dove him under the turret at like level 4 or something, or 5 to get a solo kill, was so impressive. So I definitely think that's a champion that should probably get picked some more. What I didn't like about their draft in game 3, and when I was watching it back, I had not seen the results yet. So, I mean, I'm watching it delayed, but I don't know what the draft is. And I was just thinking they're going to lock in Daniel's Jace for sure. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
Daniel's best champion. It got through to the third game. He played a really good Jace game in week 1 against us, and in the later parts of the game was pumping so much damage, which you're kind of saying you felt like they were missing a little bit of damage in
Yeah.
this game. And
Especially with the
that's
Waylock
not to
in.
say it's not to say Lissandra wasn't. It couldn't work. I mean, like we said, he was like 6-1 at one point. He got solo killed in the bot lane by LSD Dreams in a really nice outplay that kind of started to snowball the Ari. But not that Lissandra couldn't have worked, but I was just so shocked he didn't just go to the Jace when you already have Hwei as well. I would have loved that from him. And I feel like that's something where he's so comfortable on it that I don't think he would have had those kind of mistakes in the late game. And I think maybe they could have closed with the Blake lead.
Yeah, I just wonder maybe if like the Jace matchup with Ari's bad or something, but because obviously Lissandra was picked for the matchup and not really any other reason. I don't think it does great into any champion besides the Ari, and you know, it's a really good
And you already
matchup.
have Poppy for Ari is kind of my
Right.
thought there too. And I'm sure. I mean, Ari's probably not the best thing for Jace to play against. I mean, a good Ari can charm you when you're trying to like do the Q hammer, but I don't know. Sometimes it's comfort to me, and it's like he's so good at that champ. I would have still liked to have seen it, but
Well, anyway, we can
I'm
move
still
on to
excited to see
your
more in
series.
YMB. Yeah.
Yes, this is the only series that neither of us casted, which is kind of interesting, but you were in it.
Yes.
The first game, I did get to watch when I recorded it, and the other two I kind of had pulled up while I was casting the first one. Did not get to pay too much attention to the second game, so I will let you take us through the first two, and then I'll share my thoughts on the third one. Not that there's really much to talk about, but
Well, so the first game was a really close one. I liked what both teams had drafted. They had a kind of interesting draft. They took Silas as their first pick on red side. Clearly because I assumed, they were intending to take champions like Malphite and perhaps the Gnar, and that's just such good ultimates. They don't want to, I guess, risk giving over Silas. So I liked their comp. Almost had a lot of comfort for them. I mean, you have Ribbons on. Ribbons as a Felios. Jakar seems to be a really good Gnar player, but I liked what we had too. Team fights were super close. Obviously, you can see the score lines. But just in the late game, I thought Jakar, Jim, and Alec in particular were finding really good engages. Alex Silas was really disrupting the Smolder and myself, the Way's job. Game 2, I thought well, I didn't really know what to think in the draft, to be honest. They got really crazy with it, like role swapping people around. You've locked in multiple champs that can go multiple places, and then you see the Karthus, and at that point, it's like, okay, well, I'll just put that game as Sarver's called for Swain on R5, and I mean, that's just an excellent call. And he absolutely thematically countered him, popped off in the game. I thought Beam played a really good Leona. And it was just kind of fun for us to get to kind of put our red side flex power to use. I mean, we lock Lucian early. I mean, with the intention that Sarverus can play that, but ended up thinking, okay, that's not the best matchup maybe into Karthus, and he just saw the Swain angle. So I'm like, well, I'll play Lucian mid. I can do that. And we made it work. Thought Noam had a really great game. Bean on his microwave Leona build did great. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of a weird game. Felt like they got a little bit loose with it. And I'm glad we were able to kind of play cleanly and improve on what we'd been struggling with so far this season. I mean, that was the first win of the season. The NYMB series was an 0-2, and you lose game one. And again, what were really close, heartbreaking fashion. I mean, I didn't even die that first game. Like,
Yeah,
the fights were there. We just could never close. And then so to finally get that win in game two was a really good feeling for us. I don't know what you thought about game three, though.
Yeah, I mean, game three is, I don't know. This is possibly the fewest kills a team has ever gotten in Scrim Zone history. I really am not sure. I do think that would be a fun stat to pull up. Probably not for Qualmas Chillers though, but yeah, I mean, they drafted 5 scaling picks and just didn't get lucky. I mean, if you draft 5 scaling, you have to get lucky to some extent because you're never going to be favored in any fight unless you happen to have egregious numbers early in the game. I think Drakkar did 800 damage or something. They just never even got a chance this game.
Yeah.
The Gruer mid stays, or the Gruer Jin mid stays OP as shit, apparently. I don't understand how this works every time, but it sure did. The Mel able to do really well. I feel like they did a lot of work, but Noam, I feel like, and Jonah found just super good engages as well as Bean. I mean, I don't know, just everyone played great. I
mean, to me, yeah,
just look over
I'll
and
just
they
say,
just hit everything perfectly and wipe them every single time, and it's oh, what do you even do?
yeah, I mean, Qualmas Chillers, I kind of agree. I think their draft was a little too much scaling, probably. But I mean, they also just went Giga Comfort, and I don't always hate that. You're in your game three. Alec is an amazing Azir player. Ribbons is
We could have seen
amazing
Tarek.
at the Jinx. Jakar is a great Viego. So you just you draft a lot of your comfort. But I mean, I thought we just played a kind of a flawless game there outside of Sar versus Death. Being with the best consistent rel engages I have ever seen. I mean, I think Bean actually played a flawless game. When I watched it back, he did not make any mistakes around the engages, the team fights, the snap engages were so fast. I mean, you watch it back, Jakar gets killed at the Rift Herald, or gets chunked at the Rift Herald off an amazing Bean engage. Okay, that gives us an advantage. You set up for a dragon. Bean finds an amazing engage under Jakar. You follow it up with the Jin W. I think Ben reflected the Maokai ult. The Viego just cannot move, gets 100-0. You run through the fight. And then at that last fight, Bean just sees 4 people, flashes in on all of them. I'm a screen away on Jin, but he sees the angle, so we go for it. And yeah, I don't know. Honest, one of the best games I've ever seen from anybody in Scrim Zone, to be honest, from being there.
Well, yeah, I will consult later and figure out if there's a game where people got fewer than 1 kill or tied with it. It's rough. At least they didn't get 0. Tough loss for
True.
QC though. I think I want to talk about the standings later, but definitely not how we expected it to start off. I think you could have something to say about Rat not being there, but I honestly think this lineup should be really strong. And I don't know. Really good win from Monty.
Yeah, well, one more thought before we move on this one. What did you think about their role selections? Because I was just kind of surprised. I mean, QC last season, one of their big staples was the fact that they were kind of role flexible. And in this game, you saw Drakkar play 3 different roles. Ribbons played 2 roles. Jim played 2 roles. I don't know. Do you think it's to their advantage to be switching so much this season?
I'm really not sure. Having played against Ribbons top, they're pretty good on the Shen. I think given the fact that they had a Shen angle, I think it could be good. I don't know if it really panned out the way it should have, having not gotten to see too much of that game. I think Drakkar clearly has the best role though, and I think it's definitely in his favor to at least stay there. And And I mean, I don't really know what lane swaps you can pull off if Drakkar is stuck on jungle with this roster. I think the role swap that I would make if I was captaining this team is maybe switching between Paul and Jim top. If their champion pools are different, if their champ pools are dead the same, then I don't think there's much of a point to it. But I think getting each of them games on comfortable top laners and then using their like different support pools to kind of cover things in Fearless, I think could work out well. But I mean, Drakkar is just like the carry of your team, and he's never going to be as good at top lane as he is on jungle. And I think he has just like way too much power to manipulate the game. And I honestly think that they were probably tilted enough after the second game that they just didn't stand much of a chance in the last one. From what I've heard, I think QC is a lot more mental dependent of a team this season than they were in previous seasons. So maybe that's something they'll be able to work on. But I think, I don't know. I hope to see them bounce back from a lost game at some point this season. But the streak may continue. We'll have to see. But I think
I wouldn't want to
this
face
lineup
them.
in game 3, I think is probably their strongest with this roster, and to see it perform the worst, I think something else has to be going on there. Unless you could just say the drafts was shit, which possible.
I just think they picked a draft that, frankly, I don't want to say like it's disrespectful, but it's like you picked a bunch of comfort, you picked a bunch of scaling. You've already talked about you don't really have the ability to force things early. You're kind of relying on the other team to make mistakes. And I think my team just played the best game we've played yet as a team, honestly, whether in scrims or stage match or practice or whatever it would be. I think we just played a really clean game and didn't make mistakes. And I mean, usually I've played against the Viego and the Zero before, like Alex getting crazy shuffles into Drakkar resets, and it's just the team fight never materialized because Bean was just starting every playoff so well.
Yeah. Tough stuff. And I mean, this is a series everyone wants to talk about, though, because my God, absolute
crazy
cinema. It didn't end until 3 hours and 43 minutes after it started. It's one of the longest series we've ever had in Scrim Zone. We had 2 insane games in game 2 and 3. I think the first one was a nice, pretty clean win from SKT. Canuck had a solid start to the game, and I think was really showing off. And Omar obviously always plays great on the Akali win or loss. Draco did not have a super great game, which is not what I was expecting on the Leona, but I definitely made up for it for the rest of the series. But yeah, I mean, SKT just looking really good to start off the game, and honestly looking really good to start off all 3 games. They just only were able to close out on the first one, but the losing streak does continue. It's a 16 series now. I think I said before the season that it was at 16, but I also said that Alverson never made playoffs, and I'm just clearly wrong about a lot of stuff. But yeah, it is rough. I have talked to Apari. He is confident that they're going to win one this season. He said they're on pace to. He really likes how his teammates are playing. He thinks that they've improved a lot in draft, and I'd agree. I think if you look at Skaven Kill Team's drafts and ignore their second phase bans, I think they look like really good drafts. However, dropping a ban in the third game and then banning Poppy when you have you have a couple champions with dashes locked in already, but I don't think you're super worried about the Poppy because the Gwen is just going to annihilate her. And I mean, I don't even know if anyone on their team even plays Poppy. And then in the previous game, Akshan's getting banned for who? For what? What purpose?
Yeah.
The Talia is at least high on Omar's mastery. I don't think he's going to play it, but he could. But the Akshan, I don't even know. And then in the first game, Braum, I mean, obviously the Morgana kind of foretold the Morgana that showed up in the second game, but I don't know. I mean, I think the first game overall, their draft looked the best. I think they executed it on it really well, but yeah, just as they went on, I think there's still some of the same problems that we've seen before. And I guess we have a new issue of them not being able to close out games with a lead, but I do want to hear your perspective on it because I think there's a couple different ways to look at how this series went down.
I mean, I think SKT, as disappointing as that was to lose, you did look like there's some promise there. I mean, you threw an 8K gold lead, but you earned an 8K gold lead. You got to think about it both ways. You're trying to have some momentum to carry on. I thought Tuxedo looked great in his debut. The Aatrox was an insane game. The Gwen was really, really good. The Ambessa was good once he kind of got online. To me, it's just insane that you could lose when he had that H-Try performance and that Gwen performance, because both were just like
And
so
neither of those
good.
were the game he won.
I
I think the
know,
Abessa
and
was
it's just
probably his
like,
worst game.
and I thought honestly, I don't think Game Case had a very good last game, but his first two games were really good.
Yeah.
Thought Faye played an insanely good Ezreal game. Sam is Sam, and I liked Apari in the first and third game. Um, to me, in the losses, I don't think it was like any one big thing. It was just a lot of people making a lot of small mistakes, and it
Yeah.
adds up. And I think the level of play in the server has just gotten so high, and all the teams are so good that if you make mistakes, teams can punish it. So it's like you're not allowed to make very many. And unfortunately, I think kind of just spread across the team, they were all just kind of making some occasional mistakes, and it just kind of added up. You kind of started to get outscaled in that second game. I mean, once Caitlyn got items and once Omar's Cassiopeia got strong, and Canuck scaled, I mean, it was just really hard for them. And then in the third game, I think your macro just kind of misplayed a little bit. I mean, Syndra did scale really hard,
Yeah. And I feel
but
like
to me,
Omar
you
just
should have been
played
able
the
to close
game
that one.
perfectly. Like,
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is mistakes from SKT, but I feel like if Omar misstepped at all in like the last 20 minutes of the game, they lost. But Omar just clutched the hell up. If
yeah,
this team does end up making it to playoffs, or hopefully in the top four, and gets one of the good seeds, I think they're going to be super scary. The amount of clutch that they have on this team, Albert getting like 10 kills to start the game off on a Mumu was absolutely ridiculous. He hit like
yeah.
every bandage in a row for such a long time. I mean, eventually ended up missing some, but it was so good. And Canuck just locking in. You're in such a hard matchup. He ends up not even dying at the beginning of the game because he gets chased by Gwen halfway across the map until she gives up. And then he just like 2-3 into a Gwen. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Canuck.
Especially with the nine. Like, it's just a really good
Yeah,
scoreline.
I think the biggest thing Albert's Inferno did wrong that game was they blind picked Mundo with the Gwen open. Like, I think they let that sneak through,
Yeah.
but then Canuck did as good of a job as you possibly could, I would say, into that hard matchup of like avoiding deaths. Yes, Gwen was like split pushing, but Gwen was not able to kill him on the split push, so there was never really a threat for her to like end the game. So it allowed the rest of the team to kind of stall out and look for the team fights, at which point Albert and Omar were just really taking over. And again, yeah, I was really impressed by Omar. I think he had three pretty good games. And I just think the difference was in the first game, his champ was really countered by the enemy comp. Like, it's just so hard to play a Kali into all that CC. And then in the later two games, I think he drafted really well. You got a great Cassiopeia spot, you got a great Syndra spot, and then he just executed them. And you might find this interesting, Dean. In the chat, Omar actually said that he was going to pick Talia, and then they banned it.
Oh,
So he
okay.
only went to Cassiopeia because she was banned.
Okay, banger band then. I take it back. Was he going to
Well,
play
maybe
Akshan
not
though?
because the Cassiopeia went crazy. I mean,
That's
Talia
true.
would also have been good there, but Cassiopeia went huge.
Ooh, how's the Nocturne Spell Shield interaction on the rocks? Does it? I feel like it would just block one rock and then you get hit by the rest of them. That would be kind of good.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. This is like so tough. I think Brian and Draco had an incredible second game. I think honestly they struggled way more than I expected them to. I don't know if that's credit to Faye and Sam or if Brian and Draco just didn't happen to show up as much as they would today, or
Mm.
I guess yesterday. But yeah, I mean, Brian and Draco, I think, have a lot of upside to them. Saw some consistency issues throughout the series, but if Brian and Draco turn up, this team's going to be really terrifying to play against consistently. In both of these top
Mhm.
laners, I really want to see them interact with other top laners that are more known values because they both looked really strong this game and also really evenly matched. But
Yeah.
maybe that's just because of how the game played out and the fact that they were on carries every single game. But both of them were able to pick up a lot of CS over the course of the game, and I think that made them very strong in relation to other players. But that could always
Well, I
be a
think,
macro thing for both teams, just allowing them to get a lot of farm. But I'm excited to
yeah.
see
I
both
mean,
of them face off against Blake, both of them face off against our team.
mhm.
Maybe throw Dave in there. There's just a lot of unknowns about the top lane, and I think it's gotten a lot stronger season over season. But hard to tell without getting to see a lot of the matchups play out.
Yeah, I think this Alberts team had a. I mean, let's be honest. You were down a lot. You super clutch. You clutched it up. You're going to want to improve as you go towards your next week because whatever upcoming teams you have, you're probably not as easily going to be able to get like come back from an 8K gold lead against a team like Rift Sharks or QC or something like that. So I think you got to clean it up a little bit. But to me, their ceiling looks so high. In particular, two reasons. I thought Canuck, who I'd never seen play before, played super well. And as impressive as the two carry games were to me, where I thought he got good advantages and really pressed his lead, the fact that he was able to play as well as he did on Mundo in a terrible matchup lets me know that this guy can play weak side, he can play strong side, he can play carry, he can play tank. He'll know how to minimize whether he's in a bad matchup or whether he's against a better player. And it's like that just tells me you got a rock in top lane. And then frankly, I don't think Draco had a very good series. And I know how good of a support Draco is. So I think if Draco has a series that I would put more on like the level I expect and usually see from her, this team has an insanely high ceiling. And I think by the end of the season, if they play together more, because you got to think they've probably played together, some of them a lot, but as this 5-man roster in this role order, probably not as much as other teams that have practiced. So I just feel like their ceiling as they play more together is going to be really high.
Yeah, for sure. I'm terrified of this team. And SKT, I think with some tweaks, I think they could be really scary too, just considering how evenly matched they were with another team that we say is terrifying. But time will tell on that one. But since we actually have all the games logged this time, we can look meta, which I'm quite excited to.
Fun.
Just for team format, the highest presence champions, albeit this is going to be a little scuff because it doesn't count fearless presence, because honestly, I don't care enough to do that. But Syndra, Gwen, Varus, Victor, Kayn are the top 5. I think Kayn is the most surprising one up there to me. I think 8 of these are bans, probably a decent amount against Drakkar and Apari, if I had to think correctly. Syndra and Scrim Zone are like freaking equivalent at this point. Like she's just synonymous with the server. All of our good mid laners have a really good Syndra. I mean, we have Omar, Gruer, Giraffe, Game K's all have games on the Syndra. Alec can play Syndra, and I'm sure
Justini.
I'm forgetting. Yes, Tusini. I forget what we did with Syndra that series. I think maybe she was like perma pick ban, but yeah. And then Gwen, I think, is more of a like Gwen and Varus are more patch specific, I think, and might fall off as they get nerfed or buffed. But a lot of really good carry top players, I think, makes Gwen more high prio, and the fact that Varus can be flexed between top and bot, I think, matters a lot. But I do want to point out that Varus is 0-3, so he's literally never won, and we've banned him 7 times. So maybe it's like fake prio, kind of hard to tell.
Well, I don't think we haven't seen the Varus top yet. I don't believe everyone that's played it has played it either mid or bot, and it's drawn like permaban against I think
mid.
Blake's had it banned against him a lot, and so has, I believe it was their ban against Canuck maybe. So just not allowing that to go through for anyone.
Yeah, bringing it down by role though, just in terms of picks, Ornn, Maokai, Ambessa, Aurora, Gwen, and there's a lot of other champions with 2 picks, so I'm not going to go over them, but Ornn and Maokai are the only ones that are super high prio. I think most of the kind of veteran Scrim Zone players are in the Ornn camp, and I think a lot of the so-called QC camp of players prioritize the Maokai a lot more. So none of these are particularly surprising to me. Sante is actually 0-2, and Renekton's and Swain are both 2-0. Urgot being 0-2 also is surprising to me, but it's kind of hard to tell too much at this point. The best top lane game in terms of KDA was actually had by Kage on the Galio, if that is of substance to anyone. And then I think moving on to jungle, we have Amumu, Jarvan, Nocturne, and Zac, which I think 3 of those are Scrim Zone staples, but getting to see more Nocturne has been pretty exciting. Fishy and Apari not actually able to find the wins on it, or Fishy able to find the win in the other game. Was able to win into QC on it, into Drakkar's Gwen, and lost on it into Metabusters, into Yone jungle. So, I mean, kind of go figure there. But Amumu doing really well as usual, and Zac's actually 0-3 at this point. I don't know if Zac's just like weaker in this meta, or they haven't been good Zac spots. I don't know what your read on the jungle meta is. There's a lot of these AP threats that are looking really good in the jungle.
The jungle feels pretty open to me right now. I think you can kind of pick a pretty good range of champions. The ones that are at the top aren't really a surprise, except maybe the Nocturne. But I think there's just teams feel comfortable on it, so they're taking that one. But everything else, pretty staple. Uh, but I think you'll continue to see a wide range. I think players that like the carries, I mean, even though like the Graves lost, I thought the Graves looked good. The Yones found a win. Lilia's looked good for players. I think Viego 0-2 isn't really fair to Viego. I think that champion could still get picked. So it just feels pretty open to me.
Yeah, well, we can move on to mid lane, which I think you'd know a little more about. Syndra's still the most picked, even though she has been banned a lot. Kali's gone 0-2, unfortunately. Asol, Azir, and Hui at 1-1, as well as a lot of other ones. Looks like Karma, Oriana, Rise, Victor, and Silas and Jace are both 2-0, which is somewhat surprising that those are the only two to be undefeated on more than one game so far, but it does make some sense. We have a couple good Jace players, Daniel and Giraffe being the two with wins makes total sense. Silas being Alec and Snow, I think also makes sense, just given the prio that was put on that champion by those players last season, although Snow was more in the jungle, but I don't really think that makes too much of a difference. Are there any other picks that you think are going to kind of shine as the season progresses?
I'm curious to see where the control mage prio kind of ends up as the season goes on. Syndra is obviously going to continue to be really high presence, probably more bans than picks. But then the champions like Rise, like Oriana, Victor, Azir. I'm excited and kind of interested to see where does the priority list on those kind of end up falling. But it does seem like there's a lot of champions you can play. I mean, the Jace has seen picks. I know there's you've seen kind of the pocket picks, like you had the Kog'Maw come out. I think this Jin mid pick super OP. Other people should pick that up. Akali's always kind of a staple, but then you have like unique stuff like the Nefiri. I thought even though it lost, looked good. I think even though Zoe's lost, that's a champ that could still get played. I think LeBlanc's going to have spots. Ari has looked good. The Anivia is going to continue to get played. So I'm just loving how like wide open the mid lane pool is.
Yeah, well, moving on to
But yeah, I think we
AC,
should see.
we've lost all the charm that mid lane had. We have 5 games of Jinx, 5 games of Yunara, 3 games each of Aphelios, Caitlyn, Jhin, Smolder. Awesome. We've
Hey, it's
seen a
fearless,
couple of games
guys.
with
Pick other
Hui, so
stuff.
it's exciting. Varus actually 0-2, like we talked about, and then there is a bit of variety. I think there's a decent amount ADC. It feels like there was less than there was mid. Getting to see the Karthus and the Swain, Neela, Syndra bot, which didn't go great, but we are getting to see some variety. We saw the Vigar come out from Faye, but there are definitely a few champions who are very much more present than other ones, and I don't think it's a huge surprise that it's Jinx and Yunara. Aphelios is 3-0, Caitlyn is 3-0. Both of those champions are ones to look at. I think they're champions that are a bit more specialized to specific players. Not everyone's going to whip out the Caitlyn, and I think Aphelios is really strong in the patch, and more people are playing him because of that reason. Whereas I feel like the Caitlyn players, I think Caitlyn is being boosted a little bit by those players' proficiency on the champion. I could be wrong though, but that is my read there. Smolder is another one that I think is a little boring. Sarveris wasn't able to win on that champion, but I thought 1T's bot lane looked incredible that entire series. I think they took a
Yeah.
step up from an already really good series against New York Nutbusters. So I think in essence, Smolder has won 3 games. It just he was prevented by how the late game went there. But
Yeah, the smolder was not the issue in that loss. But bot lane's kind of a lot of the same. I mean, I hope we get to see some more of the kind of champs that kind of have 2 or 1 picks right now. Like, I know Kai'Sa's 0-2, but I still think you could get some wins on Kai'Sa in the right spot. Ashe 0-1. I don't think that's fair to that champ. Um, we'll see how Varus looks post nerfs. Sivir, I think, pretty good champ. Lucian. So hopefully we see a little more variety.
yeah, I think it is interesting that the champions with JK, I take it back. I thought about what I was going to say and it was really obvious, so I'm not going to say it anymore. But support, I think we are actually seeing the least amount of variance from last season. We saw a Galio pick squeezed in there, which I think is new, but Braum, Nami, Leona, Milio, Rakan, Karma, like these are just the same shit that we saw last season. I think there's the least churn in the support meta because I think it's the role that's been changed the least by the support quests. It does
Hmm.
is give you the extra control word slot and a bit of extra money. You'd think the bit of extra money would matter a little bit more, but it kind of doesn't. I think you could potentially see an angle for more damage dealing champions. I mean, I think the Morgana looked good. I think Draco made it look really solid, but is also picked in a really good spot into the Vigar. But that's kind of the most out there pick we saw. Tom Kench and Yumi, we weren't seeing a ton of last season, but I don't think they're particularly exciting, and I think they're really good with certain champions and not necessarily great all around. We did get to see a Zillion game from Bean, so I'd be excited for more of that. But honestly, support's the most boring role. I don't really have too much to say about it.
I think we're missing any Alistar picks. I think an Alistar pick would not be too surprising to see one of those come through. You got a lot of good Alistar players, so maybe that comes through. But or also, I think we'll for sure see some Tarek at some point from QC. But
Potentially.
yeah,
It
otherwise
depends
a
on how
lot of
much
those
Jim
same
gets
guys
to play
champs.
versus Paul, or if anyone else decides to pull that out. Because I do think that their starting roster is Jim instead of Paul, but I could be mistaken. I do want to get in predicts for the next week.
Do it.
Okay. I was just making sure there wasn't anything super important there. But the next week of games are all scheduled. I think there's a potential issue that could be arising with availability for one of the teams Tuesday, but I don't want to speak anything into his existence if it hasn't happened yet. I am knocking on wood to make sure that I've unjinxed it. I think we have the appropriate captains trying to handle the issue. But up next tomorrow is Project Tuesdays versus Rift Sharks. I think this is going to be one of the most exciting series because as we look at the standings, these are the only 2-0 teams. So it's going to be a very exciting matchup. I honestly thought there were going to be 3 2-0 teams. It did not end up working out that way. I guess it wasn't even possible for that to happen. Anyway, ignore me. But I just didn't think right. But Rift Sharks versus PT is going to be really exciting. I think I talked a little bit last week about how I thought maybe that the matchups in the first week were kind of even matchups. So maybe winning against teams that were of your own skill level doesn't necessarily mean that you should belong where you are in the standings. So if we lose against PT, I'm absolutely eating my words and look like a total clown, which I love to see. It doesn't mean that I was wrong about my words. It just means that I was thinking about it in a different way than I thought I was, which is equally as embarrassing. But I'm excited to play that. You may get to see a different roster coming out from Rift Sharks. You may not. No spoilers. I'm not saying anything of substance. Project Tuesdays also has only run their starting roster, so we could see something different coming out from them. But moving down on the list, we have your opponents. You are getting to play against Albert's Inferno during the Super Bowl, which we all know is going to be the real Super Bowl. If the series delivers like the last one for Albert's Inferno did, or the last 2 series for One Thief did, I think we're in for such a banger. But based on the trajectories of the teams, I'm honestly just going to predict a 2-0 One Thief. I think with how inconsistent their bot lane looked and how consistent your bot lane has looked, and the fact that you guys went from a 0-2 to a 2-1 against a team that was really good and looked so dominant in the last game, I think Alberts is really going to need to pull it together in a week, and I think that's a tough turnaround time for them. We were talking a lot last week about how maybe having an early game would take them a little bit to warm up, but I think you would want a bit of an easier matchup in the second week in order to get another win. I think they're very happy to get the dub against SKT, but they're going to need to really get their shit together to be able to beat you guys this week. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling confident, definitely after our performance last week. I think my team's kind of improved. If I'm predicting those 2 series, I'm going to predict a 2-0 for my team. I'm feeling good for Sunday. For the Rift Sharks Project Tuesday series, I am very excited for that one as well. I hope we get to see starting rosters on each side, but either way, it'll be a good series. But if we do, if we get to see something similar to that for each side, to me, this is a big test for Project Tuesdays. I think Rift Sharks has looked like probably the best team. We've only seen 1 week out of Snarkify, but I think they're kind of right up there with them. I do think Project Tuesdays has looked really strong, although I think Project Tuesdays has not played probably like a top 4 team yet, I guess what I'm trying to say. So I think if they come into this one and continue to look as good against a team like Rift Sharks, then I'm just going to be rating Project Tuesdays high for the rest of the season. I think they have a big test. I think LSD Dreams and Blind Spiral have been playing really well. But I think you're going up against potentially Giraffe and Fishy, who I think have looked like the strongest mid-jungle duo so far this season. that's a huge test for Project Tuesdays. And if you're able to match that, then I think you match up pretty well everywhere else on the map. So if the mid zone can step up for them, I see an angle for them to make it a really exciting series. All in all, I think I'm going to predict a 2-1 for Rift Sharks, but really, I bet it'll be really close.
Yep. And I do want to move on. Skaven Kill Team and Qualms Chillers actually also have the same record in the standings. So, that means that these teams are on absolutely equal footing, and QC is going to win with no problem, or SKT is going to win with no problem. Okay, a bit of a Freudian slip there. I do think QC is going to win this series. Maybe it'll be a 2-1. I think maybe SKT could take a game off. I think with the amount of swapping QC's done around, with Rat still being on vacation, they don't have a main role top laner on their team. And with how good Tuxedo looked, I think maybe there's a game where Tuxedo just runs it. Maybe SKT's macro cleans up a little bit and they're able to close it out. But I think QC 2-1. I think that team is really good. I think it is criminal that they are 0-2. Please clip that I just said that and then edit to make it look like I said that about SKT. But
for me, like I've said earlier, I think SKT has a lot of momentum. That's a terrible way to lose. That really is a bummer. But like, you did good things in that series. It was your first time playing with that roster on on an actual match. Like, you can feel good going into this. However, unfortunately for them, they're catching QC, who, despite being 0-2, I still think it's one of the best teams. QC that's probably pissed off because you shouldn't be 0-2, and then, I mean, you called it. That third game was not very close, so I know they're going to want to have a better performance. And frankly, I just think I don't see them going 0-3. I think Jakar goes crazy this series. I think they're still without Rat, is what I heard, but as you've kind of said, and I think this roster is really not a big fall off from the roster with Rat. Like, I think Alec is an excellent mid laner, and I think Ribbons is an excellent AD carry player. So I think you're still a really strong team with them in. I'm predicting a QC 2-0.
Well, I have more faith in SKT than you do officially. Are we surprised? Potentially not, but we'll have to see. Going over to the final series that we get to predict, though, it is going to be Snarkify Rebellion versus New York Nutbusters. You kind of made a nod to it earlier that Snarkify might be the team that looks the best so far, and I think this is going to be a 2-0. I think Snarkify is just going to absolutely stomp them. I think Snarkify is really good, and I think New York Nutbusters not being able to find the win versus Project Tuesdays, I think one Thief looked a little rough in the first week, and I think that was a lot of the reason why New York Nutbusters were able to win. I think they are going to get exploited in the lanes where they are not as strong into Snarkify Rebellion, because I think if you have a weak mid or a weak bot or a weak jungle, you are just going to get exposed versus Snarkify. I think you need to be really solid across the map and be able to punish them in the spots where they're weak, which is just going to be really difficult. So I think that is going to be a 2-0 Snarkify. I think that team is really good, and we will get to see them play again in this coming week.
Yeah, I'd probably match your prediction there. It won't shock me if the games aren't competitive. I think they'll be competitive. I think where Nutbusters has continued to do well, they'll continue to do well, which is things like you'll have good play coming out of top lane, which should give you an advantage in probably the early game, at least in that portion of the map. I think Blaze continued to be consistently good, but I think across the board, I think as they get to the later parts of the game, the team fighting from Snarkify will probably kind of take over, and I think the scaling of a player like Vetus is just kind of inevitable. And so if you're not really strong yourself in the later parts of the game, I think it's going to be hard to beat that team. And just based on the way that Nutbusters kind of fumbled their advantages in the last series, it doesn't give me confidence that they'll be able to close that out against Snarkify, even if they do manage to get an early advantage. So yeah, I'd probably go with a 2-0 for Snarkify.
Yeah, I am trying to get something set up for us real quick. I do want to take a look at the strength of schedule for all the teams, because I think it is incredibly funny so far this season, and I think it really does point out a lot of things. I am struggling to remember who all has played, but a lot. Since most of the teams actually do have losing records, there's going to be a lot of teams whose opponents also have losing records. But there are going to be a couple teams who are at the bottom whose opponents have really high records, and I think it will show how unlucky those teams have gotten with their potential draws.
Hmm.
But give me a second. I am finishing up the last one. Yeah, and I mean, part of this, obviously, your individual wins are going to count against you. So I am going to adapt for that. So I'm going to remove the games that these teams themselves participated in, which I didn't think to do the first time around. So again, going to
Okay.
take me just a little bit more, but I think that's a more fair representation because including your own wins, obviously, doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. And then I need to make some of these yellow because they're 1-1 instead of one-sided. Okay. And then let me swap over the display. And here we go. Oh, that's not right. How do I make this? Let's go like 80%. Perfect. Okay, so let's start from the top down. The two teams Rift Sharks has played have only lost. They're against O2 teams. This is also true for Albert's Inferno and Snarkify, who are 0-1, and One Thief's opponents, who are 0-2. That means that these four teams, in theory, are a little higher in the standings than they should be. From the opposite angle, New York Nutbusters' opponents have not lost games other than the games that they played against. And same is true for Metabusters and Skaven Kill Team, although 1-0 in those cases. Qualmless Chillers and Project Tuesdays are in the middle ground where their opponents have gone 1-1, which probably means that they're about in the right place of the standings. Do I think that makes sense? Just face checking it? Kind of no. I think I would expect QC to be a lot higher, but One Thief taking the game off of them while having lost a game to New York Nutbusters, I think makes this whole thing very complicated. But if you do
Yeah.
look at the bottom, I think UC, Metabusters 0-2, Qualmless Chillers 0-2, both of those teams were thought to have been the stronger teams in the league, and seeing them all down there and seeing a lot of green and yellow in the bottom, I think is kind of pointing to part of the problem. I think Qualmless Chillers might realistically be a little higher than they are, but honestly, having dropped 2 games against teams that I think they need to beat to have really good playoff positions this year, I think that is going to be really tough for QC to bounce back from. I think obviously Rift Sharks, Snarkify, Project Tuesdays in really good positions here, although Project Tuesdays might be in the most enviable spot because they've played against a team that's actually been able to find a win. So maybe they're in a good spot strength of schedule wise, but I think we will have to see. Obviously, Rift Sharks and Project Tuesday's strength of schedule is going to be a lot higher after having played each other this next week, and I think both of them will have more accurately earned their spots up here. But I think the fact that some of this still doesn't really sit right to you, I think shows to the fact that there have been a lot of upsets so far this season, and it shows that it's been a really fun season. Because obviously, if everyone kind of makes sense where they are strength of schedule wise, I think that's kind of boring. And if you don't look at the standings and go, what the hell am I looking at? That also means that it's kind of boring. But what have been your favorite, I guess, match results so far this season, or the team that you think's gotten screwed over the most?
Um, I don't think any team's really gotten screwed over. I think for the most part, the better teams have kind of won. It's I think it's shocking to see Calmless at 0-2. But other than that, and Metabusters at 0-2 as well. But I don't know. I mean, the fact that One Thief, my team, the fact that we beat Qualmless but lose to Nutbusters, you probably would have thought that's flipped if I told you we were going to go 1-1. So I think that's a little bit of a weird result, maybe. And Project Tuesdays being 2-0, I don't know if I'd have predicted that, but they have looked good. I expect when we revisit this next week, probably won't be too much different. But if we revisit this in 2 or 3 weeks, I think it could be shook up quite a bit. I expect QC to get some wins. I think they'll beat SKT, and then depending on who their next opponent is, maybe you can pretty quickly get to 2-2. And depending on what Metabuster draws for a schedule, I could see them grabbing wins pretty quickly as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I do. I know power rankings are just that, just guesses at how good we think teams are going to be. But if you do go off of that, SKT has played 2 teams who were very low on the power rankings. So I think despite the fact that their strength of schedule is green, I think, yes, Project Tuesdays is performing very well, but they also have played a couple teams who I think we both had lower on that. I think SKT is probably going to end up very low on the standings. I think they had a couple of their easier matches off the gate. It does suck that they didn't have Tuxedo available in that first series, but that's not something they're going to get to change retroactively. So they're really going to have to step it up if they want to make playoffs. I think they have a lot of really difficult matches ahead of them, starting off with QC. But I mean, they do have the good grace of not having Grat against them next week. So maybe if they're able to punish that, that could be good for them. But who knows? Alec is a really good mid laner too. We'll have to see how he lines up versus Game Case. That is a matchup I'm really excited for. And I think Project Tuesdays has a lot to prove versus Rift Sharks. I think if they're able to make it really close or end up getting the win, I think that says so much about that team. And I think people's power rankings, at least mentally, are going to change a lot. And I think Rift Sharks, the pressure is really on us to be able to perform how people think we're going to and get either like a decisive 2-0 or just a 2-1 where we look pretty good. I think a lot of people will have a lot of shit to say if we don't get that done. We will see if that affects our mental at all. And I think Alberts and Snarkify kind of sit on that threshold of they've looked good so far. Are they able to continue that going? I think any team is capable of winning any one series against any other team. We have a really competitive league so far, and they've both gotten a win against another team who I think a lot of people thought they were close in power to. And if they're able to keep that going, I think they could look really good. But they are the only two teams to have only played one series, which means that they get no breaks for the rest of the season, and it is going to be tough. But at the same time, it means that you don't have time to gain any rust on your team throughout the season. And I think NYNB and One Thief are the big unknowns. I think we expected them to kind of both be in the middle of the standings. I think 1T was considered to be the lower bit of the top half, and NYNB was supposed to be the higher part of the bottom half. I'm really excited to get to see these two teams play against each other again in playoffs, fingers crossed. But NYNB getting that win in week 1 was huge for them, and I think that is going to help
that could be
the season.
I could see that week 1 match being very critical as you kind of get the seeding at the end of the season, because I wouldn't be shocked if One Thief and NYNB aren't fairly close in the standings.
Yeah. Well, if you had to choose one match that you're looking forward to for the rest of the season, what would it be? Because I sure as hell know what mine is.
I'm really excited for my own match versus Metabusters, because I just always love playing against that team. And then I think, not including me, I think I'm most excited for. Before the season I would have said QC Snarkify, but now I'm saying Rift Shark Snarkify. I'm really excited for that one.
That's fucked up. That was my answer. Not including myself. Maybe Albert's Tuesdays. I think that could be a match that has a lot put on it for which team makes it to 6th. I mean, if PT just keeps doing this well this season, I'm going to look like a total moron for predicting them so low. But I really am thinking maybe beating SKT and NYNB doesn't put you that high on the list, but we'll have to see.
You're going to have to back it up. You're going to have to back it up this weekend, Dean.
I know. But I don't know. I think PT and Albert's Inferno match each other like across the board. I think they have very even matchups kind of lane wise. I think LSD Dreams versus Omar is going to be freaking fantastic. I think Blind Spiral versus Albert should be really good. Dave versus Canuck is going to be really interesting. I think if Dave looks anything like he did against Blake, it is really bad for PT. I think if he's able to neaten it up a little bit, really good for them. And I think both have really strong bot lanes. I really don't even know who I'd favor in that matchup, and that's why I'm so excited to watch it. But I think Rift Sharks versus Snarkify is going to be really good. And you have the RSSR little invert acronym going on there, which I think is a little silly, but I mean, and obviously Snarkify versus QC is going to be really good, but I don't think it's going to matter as much for the standings anymore, at least how they look now. Maybe it'll be more important later on. But on that note, I think we get to the brackets, unless you have anything else you want to say.
No, let's get to it.
Okay, let's do co-host first, except I need to pull up my history, and then I feel like this is a dangerous move, leaking browser history on screen, but I'm confident enough in my myself. Okay. So co-hosts first, and then let me pull up the results on another tab so I can walk through them. But going down the list, Mason Drake shirt with the short hair did advance. It was not close. And we actually had a few ties going down on the Mason list. And how I broke ties for these was I picked a random response and used that as the tiebreaker. So Mason Hawaiian shirt won off a tiebreaker versus Mason Blurry. I think we're all happy that we get to see high-res photos from here on out. I think that was the worst one. Wampus Vacation is getting really good results. That was actually a 100% of voting went to Wampus Vacation. And Pink Shirt 2 won out over Pink Shirt 1 off a tiebreaker. Very even outfits. This is the one at a restaurant. I guess that's fun. Moving forward, Daytime SOS, doing well across both boards. Mustache Era, still going strong. That one, both of those were about 65% of the voting. Then moving forward, Flashbang Mason remains a crowd favorite, 75% of the votes to that one, and Taco Bell Mason also at 75%. Very strong contenders, but we're kind of getting down. There's closer votes than there had been before, and now we get on to the other side of the bracket, where Asleep Mason with an upset victory over Julian. No babies left in the bracket. Julian did suck as a host. He couldn't even talk at that point. Now he talks plenty, but didn't contribute much to the podcast. And Beach Garrett, I did not think that would beat Eating Garrett, but Garrett with a fork not in his mouth, he just looks swagged out at the beach, and that appealed to the crowd. 75% of votes there. Hypno Honan, I think, is also a crowd favorite. Narrowly edged out Jeopardy PB, but is advancing. And Jacob took out Will. So sorry to see it. And Jacob's actually poised to have a devastating run on the other side of the bracket because he's in both halves of it, also winning out against Hoodie Noam, but now he's against Celtics Hoodie Noam, which received 100% of the vote. Plaid Jacob and Hoodie Noam was dead even, and again had to be tie broken, but Plaid Jacob will prevail. And going down to matchup 8, it's Gruer and Eiffel versus Beer Gruer, which got 75% of the votes. I think this is going to be a very tough Gruer decision, but I think he is outnumbered 2-1. I think a cat counts more than a beer does.
Come on, guys.
Considering Gruer and Eiffel got 100% of the vote. But very excited to see how this bracket turns out, although I do have my predictions. Now let me see if I can.
I think it's just a shame that Gruer and Eiffel have to meet Beer Gruer right now. I think that could be your finals matchup if they were on the other side.
I agree, but I believe in the way I was seeding this. I actually pulled up my own form incorrectly. Okay, cool. Now moving on to the State of Scrims Dean one, we have Halloween Fizz, which absolutely clapped Germa impression. There was one vote for the Germa impression though, and Emo Dean got 100% of the votes. So these two were vastly favored over their opponents. I think this is going to be a tough call for some people. Moving on, we have Juice WRLD Sunburnt having a decent clear out over the other beach one. Timberwolves Tom Kench absolutely annihilated Timberwolves No Headphones. I think people like the Kench. It will have to stand up to a worthy opponent. Moving forward, though, to close out the rest of this first half of the bracket, Metro headphones and Glasses headphones were basically even. That came down to a tiebreaker. And Daytime SOS once again prevailing. I think these are strong contenders on both sides of the bracket. Moving forward to matchup 4, first episode, Baby Dean continues moving on.
Baby Dean.
I look so young. And then the Dig jersey with the chopped ass fucking haircut also advancing. So both of the Taco Bell mukbang ones are continuing on. Dean eating, I was not spared from this embarrassment. It moves on, as did Ruler Jersey and Glasses, which received 89% of the vote. Go-Kart Dean received 2/3 of the vote, and Green Goblin barely ended up winning, beating out the Checkered Flag shirt. So we missed our chance of the two car-related ones being in the same thing. Very sad. And then moving forward, Chef Dean won with 2/3, and Medium Hair barely edged out Glasses Dean. And then our final matchup of the Dean bracket is Genji Pencil Tiger jersey beating the Scrim Zone jersey, surprisingly. And then Beach Dean narrowly beating out Pink Tinged Dean. I think both of those I was kind of surprised to see win, but we'll see how they fare up in the next round. And now the one that we're all hungry for, waiting for, the sandwich bracket, which I am quite excited to announce the results of. I really like this one, and Gruer and I are actually going to prepare one of the losing sandwiches to either take a picture of before the podcast next time or eat live on the podcast. We'll see how it works out. But yes, very excited for this one.
Yes.
And let me pull up the responses so I actually know the results. Ham and cheese with 2/3 of the vote, taking out club sandwich, and BLT narrowly knocking out Southwest BLT. People did not like the turkey and avocado edition. We've now narrowed down the cheese and beef, which puts one of your favorite ones into a tough composition. It is French dip versus cheesesteak. Cheesesteak absolutely annihilated chicken cheesesteak. It was not close. And French dip kind of narrowly beat pastrami on rye. So I think maybe we could have a clear one, but maybe cheesesteaks are just much better than chicken cheesesteaks. And that was kind of an easy vote. Moving on to grilled sandwiches, the Italian panini has taken out the Cubano, and the classic grilled cheese kind of obliterated the croque madame. Not super surprising there, but moving on to the wild cards, the turkey melt solidly beat the egg salad sandwich, not as big of a margin as I would have expected, about 2/3 of the vote, and avocado toast, thank God, defeated the monstrosity that someone else put in, the mayo mustard bread sandwich. I'm good. Okay, and now we have the burgers versus dogs matchup. Patty melt only received 1 vote out of 12. Chili cheese dog narrowly beating out classic hot dog 7-5. Southern classics, McChicken received 2 votes. McRib received 2 votes. Thank God those are just out of here. No more McDonald's bull crap. We have Nashville hot chicken versus pulled pork. Fantastic. I could eat both of these.
Good work, people.
This is, I'm getting hungry looking at this one. Very, very good choices here. The breakfast staples, I was a little sad. Bagel melt did ended up losing. And the Eggs Benedict also was taken out by the classic breakfast sandwich. That one was not close. That was 10-2. Do like myself a good Benny, but I understand not for everybody. Moving on to the breakfast wild cards. Chicken and waffles tied with huevos rancheros and did end up winning off a tiebreaker. But I may end up cooking that as my meal. I'm a big fan of those, and they're easy. And French toast sandwich did beat out lox 7-5. Moving forward, though, we have a key matchup. It is tacos versus burritos. This one is going to go crazy. I think this one is one that we may have been waiting for. And moving down, we have the correct shawarma. I adjusted it to beef for Noam. And we have the banh mi, which actually annihilated the guabao. I was surprised. I feel like people like both of those a lot, but the banh mi just, I think it is much more of a sandwich, which could be why it got more votes, but I'm very partial to both. That's, again, a contender for something I might prepare for myself to eat, though, given that it is eliminated. This category ended up being a little bit weird because I was just kind of throwing shit at the wall at this point, but it is the Euro versus the quesadilla. Kind of hard to compare the two, but excited for that. The Euro actually got 100% of the votes in its category, which did not happen everywhere, I think. That might be the only time it happened. Somehow the bread mayo bread bullcrap got a vote. So
Whoever put that in voted for it, I guess.
That's probably true. And then moving on to American seafood, the po' boy beat out the Italian beef 7-5, and the lobster roll beat the crab cake 9-3. A lot of hate for Maryland around here, I guess, or just love for New England. We'll see if that same love for New England is around on Sunday. Probably not. Moving on to the sweet Sammys, classic PB&J cleared Uncrustables 10-2, and s'mores beat out the Fluffernutter 8-4. Again, those are just easy ones to make, but probably not going to do that. And the right ice cream sandwich won off of a goddamn tiebreaker.
What?
I cannot believe that half the voters voted for the other bullcrap ice cream sandwich. Half of it just sticks to your hand when you eat it. This one stays solid. The cookies are fantastic. You get the chocolate chips around, a nice chunk of really good ice cream in there instead of the other shit, but I digress. Sandwich cookies beating out cracker sandwiches 8-4. I did not know what to name this category because it is a fish sandwich versus PB and honey. I Not very comparable. We'll see who wins.
Interesting. Yeah.
Both of those going 8 and 4 respectively. Although this does mean that sausage and peppers is eliminated, which is another one I might go for. I love me a good sausage and peppers. Sad to see it not advance any farther, but I think fish sandwich is a really tough opponent, especially with how much variety you can get with a good fish sandwich. I'm so glad we didn't have to deal with a fish fillet or a fillet of fish, whatever. You know what I was going for.
Oh yeah.
I was done with McDonald's bullshit. And we are down to the last matchup, which is the American home cooking, which is meatball sub, which 9-3'd Sloppy Joe, versus Hawaiian roll melt, which 9-3 Thanksgiving sandwich. I feel like this one might be pretty close given the love we saw for him, but
Yeah.
I am quite excited, and I think a lot of tasty options were eliminated, so I have a lot to choose from going forward, and I hope you are feeling similarly. This
Oh
bracket
yeah.
always makes me hungry. I hope we get as good of a turnout this week as we did for the previous week, though. 12 votes on this one was the highest we've gotten on any of these. And if you are watching this and think that we should do more brackets and want to suggest one, let me know. Although I think I'm getting fewer responses than I thought, so I might ease off on them a little bit or maybe only run one at a time or something. But do want to know what interest is. And I feel like if you're a true fan of State of Scrims, you're still sticking around right now and you will let me know. Or if you're a true fan of State of Scrims but hate the brackets, you also would have left already. So I think that was a good place to put that.
If you want the honesty, the viewership does drop a bit when we get to this section.
That's good to know. Well, it is unrelated. I'm just doing it because I've
Hey,
spent
shout out Bean. Bean's still here.
66 hours of my life doing this goddamn podcast, if not longer. So I'm allowed to have some fun with it. But anyway, I will stop the stream here. And oh my God, am I excited for this week's matches. But we will see you on the other side when those happen.
Shout out Omar too. Still here.
Oh, I feel like Omar is a man of great taste. From what I know, I do need to gank that.
Yeah, I
man
want to know
IRL
what
and get some
sandwich,
food with him.
Omar, what sandwich are you expecting to win this tournament? I know there's so many left, but any sleeper picks?
I will keep stream alive until we get his answer.
We gotta get the. Hopefully, he didn't just leave right after writing sandwich. Which series are you most excited for, though, this coming week? I think they're all pretty good, other than your own.
It's tough. Maybe yours, but I think if NYMB is able to take a game or look really competitive against Snarkify, I think that would be the most exciting. But I think I think your series is gonna like guaranteed the most. Like the worst that could be, I think, is still exciting for me. Whereas I think QC and Snarkify could both just stomp, and then they're not very exciting. But I think your margin over Alberts is probably lower, but only because you've been slightly inconsistent as the season goes. But if it's like a trajectory thing, then maybe I could just eat my words. I think it's really hard to know how any of these are going to go, though.
All right, we'll see. And we were not given a sandwich answer, so we may have to end it. I'll ask him during the match on Sunday.
That sounds good. I actually may, shortly after that, be able to get a picture of me eating a sandwich with Omar. He has made a promise to me. We'll see if it gets upheld. I don't think he was expecting me to go up north so soon, but I'm doing the Super Bowl with my family up north, so we will be some traveling Dean going on. So we might have our next episode a little late, depending on when the first game gets scheduled, but I should be back in time for the next week of games. But thank you to everybody for watching. Love doing this. Love the season so far. This is one of the most enjoyable first 2 weeks of a season I've had in a while, and I'm having a blast. We had some super great series to cast so far, and I'm excited for a lot more.
Same here.
Yeah. Well, peace. See y'all.